Oh, it didn't say it loud.
That's the one thing I was
Okay,
looking
what
at
does
on
that
our
mean?
agenda, the price for
I
that.
don't know, normally we
And I
hear
decided
it
it's not worth raising the price because people
up
turn
on
it
the
up.
screen.
Yeah. Forget it.
So I'd like to call the Plan Commission meeting to order on Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025, 5:30 PM. Roll call. Berto here. Kane. Baxi. Approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Bell,
Second.
second by Heidler. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of June 24th as presented?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Baxi. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Second by Shampoo. All in favor? Motion carried. Comments, correspondence, and concerns from the public. Is there anybody joining us that would like to address the Plan Commission? Do you have anybody raising their hand on Zoom, Sarah? All right, we will move on to 5A, certified survey map, Nick Debley, 10440 Orchard Drive.
Okay, so you have read the staff report and have seen the proposed CSM in the packet. And if you have questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, the surveyor is here as well, Brian Fisk. We do not have the owners here, but between Brian and I think we can answer those questions. Basically, they want the property zone B1. They want to create 3 parcels. They want to bring sewer in there, so it makes sense to know where these lines are going to be, have the sewer laterals follow those lines, put the restaurant on its own property, and divide it along the easement, basically, that runs to the farm.
So in your report, on the bottom of page 4, it says the only concern on this lot is that the southernmost motel building is not set back 40 feet from the egress easement. What is it set back?
Let me see if that's on the survey. I don't know, but when you look at the CSM, you can tell it's more than halfway into that setback. So
Yeah, it looks like 15 or 20
about
feet from the
15
survey.
feet. There's nothing we can really do about that. The easement's already there. The hotel's already there. It's one of those things we just have to live with and recognize it's a non-conforming structure.
Well, we do have to make the division of the lots.
The easement is there anyway.
The easement is there, but it's basically access to the farm behind it, the house, correct?
Well, there's actually, if you look at it, there's also a little small gravel driveway that comes off that easement to the hotel right
Correct.
now.
It's just one of the buildings, but it is really a parking spot. It's not so much a driveway.
The main driveway is definitely at the restaurant.
Correct, but if you actually look at that physical place,
Mhm.
it's enough room to park a car.
Yeah, it's very small.
So that's not a big issue right there. I do have a couple of questions. What is the intended purpose of the second lot, that 1 acre lot behind the current restaurant and hotel?
So right now he has no plans for it, but you know, when you take the easement and divide everything in half, you have the larger parcel with the restaurant. And the thought is someday if he ever decides to sell that restaurant, he doesn't want to sell that additional piece, right? The larger piece that's back there. The other thing is and with running the sewer through there, he wants to run it along the common lot line. That second lot or lot 2 could someday be used for another B1 use if they wanted, or something associated with the farm use if they wanted. But he didn't want to sell it with not that it's for sale, but if he ever does, he doesn't want to sell it with that restaurant because it would be a very large parcel. And it didn't make sense to him.
I think when he was here in the past and spoke with us on protecting.
He's here.
Oh, And you can speak for yourself.
Yeah, if you want me to answer,
Yeah. Could you introduce yourself? for
I'm
me?
Nick Devlin. So the question is, what is my intended use with the second lot?
Yes.
Do I really need to say that? Don't be facetious. I mean, do I need an intended use in order to create a second lot?
No, you do
I'd
not.
rather keep the plans to ourselves for right now until there is a second lot. My wife and I have, we'll call them dreams and plans of doing stuff. And to talk about the sale of the restaurant, it is gonna go for sale. It most likely will be for sale by August 15th, if this goes through. If it doesn't go through, I don't know that we're comfortable giving up the whole front yard to another person. I mean, that's essentially what it is our front yard to the farm. The expansion happened where it went from the 2.5 acres of just the patio and motel to the south side of our driveway when we were gonna build the brewery. And that's when the survey was done, I think in 2018, and the lot went from 2.5 to maybe it was 3.5 to almost 6 acres, what we're dealing with now. And it's just sat there since that point in time. When you guys did the, all of the rezone stuff, I was already working with Brian to get 3 parcels made. And I had called Julie and asked if that's gonna be a big deal. You know, how do we hold on to 3 parcels if you guys are gonna put some of it into either residential or turn it back into countryside, however it worked out. And that's when I started having the conversation with her, and she became aware that I was working with Brian to potentially divide it into 3 lots. Knowing full well that the sewer and water laterals are going to have to either come up my driveway from Rachel's northwest lot, clear across the DOT land, across the patio motel, and then up my driveway, or the other option, Megan Barnes was out at my house last Monday, would be to come through the woods and straight across my farm field, what I call it's our yard that we cut. And then the sewer and water would still run down the driveway to all of the Gaines lot. One way or the other, there's gonna be access to both of those fields on the left and right side of the driveway. In order to do the sale, it makes the most sense to eliminate the easement of the septic, get the septic off, not have there be a septic system 100 feet from my house that runs, I don't know, probably 200 yards, I'm guessing, you know, from the restaurant to, am I making sense here? The septic system's currently on my farm for the patio and motel. So eliminating all of that, that's why the lot was made so big originally back in 2019, was to keep the sewer, or to keep the septic system on the existing lot instead of there being an easement. Otherwise, we would have still had an easement from the restaurant to the septic system. That making sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, it shows on the drawings that we have, that part of it.
But with the 1 acre lot with sewer and water, there's a lot you can do. You know, it's not-
And this was purely my speculation, sewer and water was coming in off of Orchard or off of 57, not coming through the back.
Well, when you look at it from, so there's a water main on the back side of the woodlot that we have an easement to. We own, that's where the development would start, is right where that sewer and water lateral is. Rachel owns from the sewer and water lateral up to the highway. We own out towards Barbara Hulls, and then we own the woods towards our house. So when Megan said that it's possible to come from that lateral, I mean, when you look at it from a bird's eye view, the lateral up by Rachel's property is a long ways away from my house. Consider that you gotta hook up to the restaurant first. So that's when I thought it made the most sense to turn these into separate lots. And I just don't wanna sell a whole front yard to, you know, unless it might deed restricted. Sell 6 acres in the front yard, if there's already a restaurant and a motel on it, what's to keep somebody from putting a bunch of motel on it, something like that.
No, I
And
don't
then
disagree with
When
you.
you're looking at where the lot line is, it's right next to my back corner of my garage to the house. But again, those lines were set up to encapsulate the existing septic system. So that was done, years ago, when we weren't in a position to do away with the septic system.
And that septic service is just the motel and
Well,
restaurant.
there's two, yeah, I have one for the farm, my house, that's more directly behind my house, and then there's one, it would be southwest from the corner of my house. That thing is huge. It was put in 91.
And that's the only one we have drawings of was from, the
Yeah,
surveyors.
because the other one's on the farm.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is, so you're not connected to this septic field that's in our drawings.
My house isn't,
Your house is not, right?
yes, the restaurant and the two motel buildings are.
So this is a question, because I'm still coming up to speed on things, but in our codes in 660303-7, it says that all lots shall abut upon a public street. And lot 2 would be on an easement, not necessarily a public street. So how does that come into play?
So then you have to look at actually, we look at the land division code, and it talks about having access to a public street. So we can allow lots on private roads,
I know we can do
easements.
private roads.
Yeah, we can allow it on public roads or easements upon plan commission review and approval in the land division code. So as long as we're okay with the way this is laid out, there may be some properties where it doesn't make sense to have it on an easement or a private road. If we deem that this one is okay, then it would be okay, because it talks about, it just have access, it has to have access, to a public street. in the
And
land
I'm willing to
division code.
go the 10 feet. It's always been our intention, but we wanted to not rip up and redo asphalt. But once the laterals are run and that part is done, that really solidifies a huge, issue that has been lingering with my wife and I for years on, how it will come about, would we be able to get an assessment, all that kind of stuff. Once that's done, our intention is to asphalt the driveway. We'll make it 10 feet wide. Sewer and water will give, with a 4-inch main, the ability for us to do specific things with the barn itself. The reason why I'm saying all this is it'll be private road ready, or, I don't intend on making it a public road, because it would just be our farm. But to make it, I believe, fire truck ready, essentially, once we're done with it.
Would that then require, like we had to do with Shelley Lane, where the width would be wider, or?
So this one, the easement is already at the required width that we would want.
Okay.
And then, yes, if he wants to turn it into an actual private road, and improve the road, we would have certain widths that the road bed would have to be on there,
But that fits within what's.
within the
Roger.
easement that he has.
Okay.
And that easement's already existing, so. So if we're okay with this one, the board does have to weigh in on this as well. So any recommendation we make would go to the board.
Was that all that you had, Skip?
Those were the questions I had.
Okay. Anybody else have questions or concerns?
Just seeing on the staff report on there, the infamous children's petting zoo, that was a little bit strange to me, but, there's plenty of petting zoo there, I didn't realize it was infamous though. Yeah, and I think that a question I had that's kind of been answered is, this just makes sense, I think that's not enough information, Bob, but hearing what Nick is saying, I understand it. So, I'm good.
I'll make a recommendation that we move this to the village board for approval. Motion by Berta. Second. Second by Shanfield. Further discussion? All those in favor respond with an eye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
I know,
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
is there any chance of me getting the 3 minutes that I was late for? I had to wait for a babysitter.
Do we? Would the plan commission as a whole, like to go back to comments and correspondence? So Mr. Devlin can take a few minutes to speak to us. Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay, we will do that.
The first thing I want to touch on, we have changed direction with the design build team. We are now contracted with Forsyth Builders to do development for the back 12.5 acres. It's a better fit. I really like the guys at Alliance. It's nothing against them at all. But we were approached with, it just makes the most sense. So I've been working with Paul Shevchuk. We are signed and good to go with the process. According to Paul, it will take at least a year from start to finish. I am very confident that everybody up here will be very happy with the end result. And it's going to be a lot more than just townhouses. It'll be R1, it'll be cluster home, cottage style groupings of houses of 55 and over, 750 to 900 square foot stuff. It's going to look really, really good. It's going to be done by people who have done it for over 50 years. You know, I mean, that's what I can say. When the pitch came to me and Paul and I bought the property and he took a look, he said he was on board. So I wanted to update you on all that. And the second thing is, if I could make, I guess, just play to the folks who have been in the village for a long time. I understand that the new tenant that I have at the old patio restaurant has had some issues with his sign. That sign that Willard and Klesse put up in 1963 to 1965 is pushing 75 years old. It's been there longer than probably everybody that's, you know, I mean, a long time. It's the same wood. It's the same sign that has been there for 75 years. Non-conforming? Yes. Everything on my farm is not conforming to that matter. I spoke to Julie about this. I'm really hoping that I can talk some of you into creating some sort of subgroup historical sign committee, something that starts to look at ways to keep old Sister Bay still standing, because all stuff becomes non-conforming. It's not in the right of way. It has not been moved or adulterated in any way, except back in 2019, my employee and I put some braces on it to keep it standing. Dig Jackson told us not to let it hit the ground. He told me to paint it. Bo Barnhoff said the same thing. So clearly, we didn't even realize that we weren't allowed to paint it, or it would become, I mean, as Carla wrote, she wants us to tear it down. We're not going to do that. We haven't tore a single thing down on our entire 40-acre farm since we purchased it in 2014. We definitely don't want to tear the sign down. I believe that the sign looks good with the building. Scott and Hannah's intention by painting the sign was not to be malicious. I think it matches the decorum of what has been there for 75 years. So I talked to Julie. She thought that what I don't want to see is litigation. Way too much of that stuff happens in this village. I've never done it. I don't want to see it. I believe that there's a way to work as a citizen or a business owner, represent my tenant with some of you, and figure out a way to divert that type of action. I'm not going to litigate, and I'm not saying Scott is, but I know that Scott also doesn't want to take that sign down. So that's what I'm asking, is for a brief reprieve, allow Scott to keep the sign until you all decide if historical sign committee, something like that. Why does all the cool stuff have to go to the historical society to remain standing? My farm is the historical society. I mean, and to Nate's comment on Infamous, 5, 10, 15 people a year drive up my driveway that are 60, 70, 80 years old. They want to look at my barn. They want to look at my metal shed. They want to show me where their name is carved somewhere on my property. This continuously happens. It's so many people's first jobs in Sister Bay. I have every single building standing. With that, I'm just asking for a common sense approach with the sign. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Next agenda item, Shampoo flooring awning courtesy review.
Okay, there's quite an excessive write-up in the packet that I prepared along with some handouts that we received from the current owner, who is here, so Tim is here and can answer questions that I haven't addressed in the packet. Basically, he's looking to change the awning on the building, change the wording a little bit, but the question came in is how much writing do you allow on an awning before it's considered a sign? The code's not very clear on that. So rather than just, we talked about it and I said, we're kind of interpreting this to be a sign, and it's like, well, can I ask? And I said, well, you can, this is a gray area, so you can ask the planning commission for a review of the matter and see what they decide or how they would interpret that. So that's basically what we're here to discuss, and then see. Also, I hope we discuss, how can we avoid stuff like this in the future, make the code a little more clear for people in this situation. So does anybody have any questions for me? Like I said, if not, we do have the owner here if you have questions for him.
Just one comment is, so when Brita got heard, it was considered a sign.
Was it? She did come
No,
to the
that's what
plan
I,
commission.
isn't that what it
Yeah, it
says?
says in there.
Yes, and she came before the plan commission.
Okay. All right. So that's a little bit of a precedent. Go, Skip.
I'm glad to let somebody else talk first. And Julie already pointed out what I found is the whole code as far as how you define a sign versus an awning. Because I get the concept of an awning is a way for a business to identify itself with something without it being too large. But the proposal that we see here is what takes that to the edge of looking more like a sign. And my recommendation really would be that commission sit down and figure out how they want to find that. If we were to go to 20% of the vertical height of the awning being limited to letters or something like that. Because an awning, like what's currently on the building, is 3/4 slope, and then you've got sign or letters on the front. And what's proposed, it's almost a flat awning, which would probably be an issue with snow load eventually, but that becomes looking more like a sign.
Years ago, didn't we treat any writing on an awning as being a sign, like back in Bob Coffin times? I want to say that we dealt with that over 10 years ago.
Well, the code says that it's a sign, it can be considered a sign, but it doesn't count toward the size limitation.
I think that's what I said when we made, that was an amendment we made, if I remember correctly, Denise, because I thought that there was like when we looked at it so long ago, it was the entire square footage of the awning counted as a sign. I'm trying to think I think it was something on 42 that triggered that review. But I do like your concept, Skip, of having it be a percentage of the height, because that is absolutely, and where that is, you'd have to do some mock-ups to say, oh, is that 50% of the height? Is that 10% of the height? My gut says it's somewhere less than 50 and more than 10, but it's.
Well, that's what I'm saying, somewhere in that 20 or 25%. It depends on the building, because a taller building is going to allow for a taller awning.
And it's also going to be like how much vertical space there is.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
20% of the vertical of the whole awning would be limited to letters or something like that. I'm just throwing it out as a proposal. But
On his option 1, he's at 50%. So option 1 has 12-inch high lettering on a 24-inch base, so to speak, if you want to call it that.
Not the one on page 12 or 11.
It's hard to read the number here. I think it's 14.
14
Oh,
or
sorry.
the,
Kind
Okay,
of goes over the option.
I found it now.
So when we allowed this to wording, I'll use Husby's as an example, to advertise kind of sports bar, burgers, whatever, businesses could use the flap to kind of sell what they're selling inside, advertise it. So, and it specifically says flap. And the way this, you called it the face, it's 24 inches. It doesn't look like it moves in the wind. It looks like it's taut. And the definition of a flap is the act of waving or fluttering, the flap of the flag in the wind. So if you take a true definition, this is not a flap. And every other business, it's a small flap that, you know, has been presented. So I don't consider this a flap in comparison with everything else that we have approved and that is out there. Do I agree that we should have a conversation to help zero in on what the code means and what we want and what the intent is? Yes. I'm not in favor of it because of that, because it doesn't match anything else, and it doesn't flap.
That was one of the other things that I had farther down my list was when, you know, you look at that building now, which is Fort Tenant building, I believe. Everything is uniform in the way the building looks, the color of the building, the color of all the awnings, all of that. Even better where they have the sign, it's staying in the same color scheme as the rest of the building. And when you take just a small portion of it and break it up like this, it's going to stand out significantly.
So if we considered Britta's a sign, because it's on the face of her canvas, so to speak, would we would consider his a sign, right? And he is, if we do that, he is within the size limits he's allowed.
With the sign on the street also.
I believe so, yeah.
I didn't add up.
Yeah, based on what I had, there was quite a bit of room to play with.
And that raised the question of whether we're considering it 1-story or 2-story, because that limits.
Right. But I do have those calculations, the parentheses is if you're considering it 2-story.
So that is where I have issue, is commercial center signage with permit 66.0711. I was not on the plan commission at that time when this was implemented. From my understanding from the record is that this was asked for by the Piggly Wiggly and the Country Walk shops because they did not front the either highway 42 or 57, and trying to direct people to the grocery store. But the code doesn't say why this was implemented, so it comes to interpretation. They did it specifically and only for the pig. Nate, you were on there when this happened. What is your recollection?
This is back when Dave was,
Yep.
that was like 2015. So I recall the ongoing conversation with Country Walk. I mean, that was an ongoing thing for a very long time. I think we finally have, it's been a couple of years ago since we had that wrapped up, but that was part of it as well. I don't recall exactly where how we came to that conclusion. That was the first pig renovation. That was like the prior renovation to the big one they did.
I have some additional context, if that's okay.
Sure,
If you guys can keep going.
He is the owner?
he's
Yeah,
the owner.
Okay.
Just state your name for the record first.
Tim Perrell, owner of Shampoo Flooring, happy to be here today. I just wanted to address one of the things mentioned was uniformity with the other buildings. We were just approved for a Door County Building Enhancement Grant. We will be painting the buildings different colors, and other business owners planning on changing their colors of their awnings. Purpose of these changes is really to stand out. We have a real problem with visibility in this community, where I have customers coming into my store and say, I've lived here for 6 years. I've been coming up my whole life. I never knew there was a flooring store here. So the purpose of this awning is to stand out, is to get that visual from the road. That's why I'm so keen on updating this awning. And yeah, I mean, I understand it's not necessarily a flap. I actually agree with you, Denise. It's the face of the awning. I don't think an unstructured flap, is as aesthetically appealing these days. So I think all the units have a structured flap or face, however you want to define it. Just because it preserves the awning's material and it lasts a lot longer. So just for your consideration, like those changes are coming for those other units as well. So
Well, congratulations on the grant.
thank you.
I recall there being, as we were looking at, and I forget which one it was, it may have been the pig, it may have been something else, like the square footage calculation, it just went up drastically beyond what the planning commission at that time thought was proportional. So they thought, okay, well, you add this square footage of this as signage to it, and it's not really signage, it's just lettering on there. I believe the kind of conversation was going on there. But this is 11, 12 years ago. I may not have this 100% accurate. There's a lot of different conversations that start to blend together. I've got a reasonably good memory, but even I struggled that long ago, keeping things separate. But I want to say there was a distinct conversation about wording on there versus logos, etc. And I also was just looking at Husby's. Husby's has the appearance of a flap, but it's not a flap. I mean, if you just take a quick glance at it, it's a small vertical space, but that's clearly not moving either. So I don't know that flap is the standard I'd look at, or flap-like, as bad as that may be for interpretation, because that really doesn't give us any clarity. But looking at this, I can see Husby's being flap-like. This is just, it's a large vertical space.
I think they're built the same. This one just has more face.
Yeah, Husby's is like that, and this is.
So if we did not commit or consider that it was a commercial center, because I wholeheartedly believe that was not the intent to open this up to all of that other multi-tenant structures. Where would they be sign-wise? What is their?
Well, so the code doesn't, the code talks about multi-tenant properties. And the only place they takes care of it in this district is to call it a commercial center. That's why I'm applying the commercial center standards. If not, there's nothing else that applies to it, and you would say, well, it's just one ground sign per property. But I think that the expectation with that is when you have one business on a property, there's one ground sign. In this case, there's several businesses on there, so.
So, right, so you can have one ground sign, and then there's criteria for the entire length of all three businesses.
Right,
And if you split that up per each
Based on
business,
their frontage.
Right, they should, because you can mix and match all of your signage. It states, you know, you can, under permitted types of signs on page 120, in the sign regulations, a business may divide the total permitted signage into a combination of the listed below. So I would want to know what legally, without considering it, a business center that could have 82 square feet, which is ridiculous. What their square footage would be. Because I'm sure Brita, with her little thing, is probably even under what she is allowed. And I don't know how much Wolf has.
Well, and they're out of that building.
Okay,
It-
so it'll be
gonna
somebody
be a
new
con-
coming in.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be a convenience store.
Okay, so what is their frontage?
So if we look at the whole thing, it would be, I remember, what do I have here, 82 square feet, if I remember right? Is what the whole property would be allowed.
That was, I thought, under the commercial.
Well, the other part that doesn't make sense on the commercial definition is it is a multi-building commercial retail development right at the first line. Multi-tenant, multi-building. And we don't fall into that on this one either because it's a single building.
And the other part, challenge with all this is, you know, the code is unclear on what do you do when you do have multi-tenants? We just had one at not at our last meeting, but there was a coffee shop, for example, and we were talking about how much square footage do they get? Well, when you have, let's say you have two businesses in a building, is it first come, first served? So the building that comes first gets all the available square footage? Or should each business be allowed some square footage? Because in this particular case, the one I'm thinking of, the second business on that property gets nothing. They can't get a sign because the first business took it all. So, you know, that's something to look at, not this case, but there's issues with the way it is calculated that we have to look at and figure out. In, not just here on this type of property. There's some issues out there. With this one,
Okay,
yeah,
it
so-
does say that they would be allowed, if we count just the shampoo section, they would be allowed 35 square feet.
right?
Denise,
Yes.
this isn't one building, these are condoed out. So the shampoo floor covering is a separate, they don't connect at all. And then there's,
Yes, it's a common wall. Interior
There's-
wall.
they don't connect at all, they're all separate condos.
Right,
all
no,
sold and everything.
I'm not disagreeing,
Okay.
but they have a common wall between each unit within the building.
I'm not sure about the old rule.
Well, would have to have a common wall.
Yeah.
Because it's a contiguous roof.
So. So if they would be allowed 35. And then said what they are proposing
So
is on page 12, is 12 feet.
well, there's 11 and 12. So on page 11, the original proposal was 22 square feet. Now on page 12, you'll see the revised request was for 12 square feet.
Okay, so it got a little smaller.
That's correct, right, Tim?
The 20, the larger proposal on page 11 is what that's what I'm like trying to get approved today. I created a smaller version as a backup plan, but I was hoping that my signage would be within the signage guidelines at 22. And that's just the square footage of the sign itself, so, I had, you know, that's my intention. Just to, like I said, increase visibility, it's still gonna look, you know, it's not gonna, it's only 24 inches versus 12 today, so it's not a giant leap.
So if he would be allowed 35 feet just because of,
Being the bigger unit.
right, but there's also in the code that says no matter what your square footage is, you can't have a sign larger than 24 square feet, correct? Correct. Okay.
So I struggle.
So
with-
then it's a sign and it's under 24 square feet. And if he's allowed 35 and he's got the road sign,
The road type, does the road type count towards that?
Yes,
And whatever side is visible, so it's double sided, you count that, counts for if it's a single, okay.
I think it's still just a single.
I struggle with it being just a lettering area, because if you put up a sign freestanding, you're gonna count the full dimension of what's there, not just where the lettering is on it.
Well, that was gonna be my next question. So on page 11, where it shows the 22 square feet, what is the dimension? Where is that in here? I read it somewhere.
I'm not sure which page I'm on, because I'm looking at this on the phone, but one is 9.5 by 34 inches,
9.5 feet?
or 9.5 feet by 24 of the vertical. I think they're both that dimension, it's just different size lettering. Is that correct?
Yeah,
I'm just talking about the face of the awning,
yeah, we just wanted to make it fit the windows properly.
Yeah. and the other one's gonna be the same. And it looks like the vertical is 24 of 34.
Go to page 14.
What color is the new building gonna be painted?
Most likely, we're gonna go with white, so we white, red, shampoo colors, just to keep within the brand's theme. And it sounds like maybe another unit in the building might go white as well, just so it keeps a little bit of coordination. And historians actually mentioned potentially making his awning red as well, so might not stick out as much as I hope, but there is, we are talking as a condo unit about curb appeal, because it benefits everyone in the community, so.
I don't get to vote, but I will just say, I think when you look at page 10, what's there right now, I don't think it's very flattering for the size of the building. You know, that's a pretty big wall.
Yes, you don't get a vote to it.
I know. Something to think about is, you know, looking at that wall size though.
Well, they're going up one more tier of siding.
So 9.5 feet by 24 inches is 114 inches by 24 inches, which equals 2736. And if we divide that by 12, right?
Just under 20 square feet on each side.
228. So 22, just under 23 on each side. So then it's,
Well, 2 by 10 would be 20 on each side. That's why I was going.
Sure.
I'm just working on rough numbers. But
oh, then why did this show 2? Okay, yeah, rough numbers, that's fine.
Yeah, it's not quite 20 square feet on each face
Correct.
panel.
it's actually going to be 19, roughly. Give or take a few inches.
To make it even murkier, I mean, are we counting the address, the lettering, the the
I am
address?
not.
No, I don't.
Okay.
No, I think that'd be a little ridiculous.
I would,
Yes, but to clarify,
Yeah.
yeah. I think the face needs to become smaller to, and we can consider it a sign if he is allowed 35 square feet just for that portion of the building, along with what's at the road. And so, you know, instead of having that 24 inches, I don't know how you tighten it or whatever. That would be a suggestion of mine.
so we ask him for that? We just say, this is what we prefer, I mean, I don't know what we can, how we can compel him, I mean, if he's,
Well, but he's only allowed 35,
so how much,
so we can't give him 36
okay,
He's at
plus the road,
18.83 on each side. plus
18 point,
okay,
83.
thank you.
so then the square footage is square footage, and he's gotta fit into that. That's the only way we can.
And I don't know what the one is on the road. It's
Yeah.
A foot by 4 or 5 foot.
So are you saying that the awning has to be like narrower this way on the face, not just the print, but the awning itself?
Yes,
Because the whole awning counts as a sign?
no, just the face where the letters are will count as a sign.
Because he needs the width to cover the windows.
Right.
The vertical part. If he had an awning that was 24 inches high in total, but it came down to 5 inches or 6 inches of vertical,
Okay,
that would be an awning. And what he would have there, I don't think would be considered a sign. But when you've got 2/3 of the vertical height of the whole thing being the vertical part that you're seeing printing on, that's definitely a sign.
So I don't know what the calculation is, that would be for you to figure out, you know, do you go from 24 to 20 or 19 or whatever?
well, I
and
guess it depends too, if the company offers something narrower.
They're custom made,
Yeah,
Oh,
that they will make whatever you ask them to make.
So are we thinking taking 35 square feet minus the size of the panel at the road? And that's what he is allowed. Does that make sense?
I just had a few points there. So the reason why I don't necessarily agree with this logic is because by that statement, if I just took all the lettering off the front, it would still count as a sign, because you're talking about the entire face as my sign. Separately, I could put up, in theory, a blank awning and then put a red sign with white letters over it that conforms to the space requirements. So that's why when Julie and I were kind of speculating on how to do this, we thought only the box where there is the logo or the letters counted towards my signing allowance. Otherwise, it gets hard with awnings because you want it to look good from the road. Given the width of the windows, you need to cover it. I'm happy, if you guys think it look better, I'll shrink it the other way and it won't cover the windows. Or if need be, I'm happy to sacrifice my road sign. It doesn't do anything for me. No one comes in because of it. So that's an extra 10 feet. I'm happy to sacrifice it if that's what needs to be done. But the awnings, I think, will look the best if they're proportional to the windows. And logically, it has to only count the letters, because I could also do that as 2 separate pieces. Like I could put the sign on after I put the awning up, and then we're back to the argument about sign allowances. So.
But that is not how we have measured signs in the past. If you put up a wood sign in front of your business, it is the dimensions of the piece. It is not, you know, if you had a 3x3 square sign and you had a 6-inch circle in the center, we don't just count the 6-inch circle it's structure. That is how we measure signs. So by saying, because this is a sign, it's not a flap, it's not, I don't believe it falls into that category because it is so large. And then we just have to work within that criteria. I didn't really understand, and maybe you can repeat it again for me, so I understand when you say you're not understanding our logic and
I just
and
feel
if you
like-
put up you know, just a red awning and then did something else, can you say all that again?
So I was saying there's a couple of things, like, you know, I'm just trying to find a solution that lets me have the original awning I intended. I think it's really well designed. It looks great in the building. When we first did this, we looked at only the letter face, and I understand what you're saying, Denise, like if it's a wood sign on the road, but, you know, I don't know if those are an apples to apples comparison, because awnings have to fit the window to look good. So a wood sign has a lot more flexibility on the road where you can kind of play with dimensions a little bit more. You're not beholden to the architecture or the structure. So what I was saying is, to me, it didn't make as much sense to logically think of the whole awning face as a sign, because I could, but by that logic, I couldn't put up a blank awning. If I left it blank, would that be considered a sign?
No.
So if I left it blank and then after the fact went and got, you know, another sign made and put on top of it that conforms, all of a sudden the whole face counts as a sign? Or would just the new sign I put up count? So there's just a little bit of ambiguity here, because it's, in my head, it's only where the letters are that is the sign. And
You benefit from that border as well, though. So the big extra blank space, I mean, I would argue very clearly benefits you as an eye attractor, just because of its being of size,
Yeah.
even if you only had micro writing on it. So I get what you're trying to say,
yeah.
but that wouldn't work.
So what if I just, like I said, going circling back, agreed to forfeit my road sign because I don't feel it does much for my business? Would that allow me to conform within 35 feet?
I don't know how big your road sign
Not-
is.
Well, even without that, is what he's saying, is if he did do a road sign, could he do this, and he's still at 37?
Oh, right.
So a small
Now,
adjustment you would.
So the
So
other
a
thing
small-
that,
I can adjust down from 37 to 35.
so the other thing, I mean, I get what you're saying, and I agree with you, that having the awnings over the windows, the full width, makes total sense.
Yeah.
But instead of having a 24-inch out of 36-inch vertical, if you had 18 out of 36, all of a sudden you're gonna be within your limits on the sign. And you can go full width, you can do your lettering over that whole thing.
I can break it down. And is that, and I'll conform to 35, and does that mean I should forfeit my road sign as well?
You just, whatever you decide to do, as long as you fit in with 35. 35. That
So
I
then
think
what does he
means-
have to bring this face of the awning down to?
I don't know, he'll have to do
You'll
the
have to do a
calculation.
calculation, and that's why just in a rough number, if it took, you know, a quarter of it off in height, you're gonna probably fall in well under the 35.
I mean,
without the road
shouldn't
sign.
we give him a number so he knows?
No,
He's
because
got
I'm
35
not,
as the
I'm not
number.
gonna do the math, and I don't know how big his road sign is.
Is he gonna have to come back again for
This
this?
is courtesy review tonight.
So what he'll do is he'll come up with a design, and then the signs always have to be reviewed by myself for compliance with the code, and then by the plan commission chair. And then, so it wouldn't come back here. And then as long as it met the intent of what we're talking about, then he would get the permit.
So it would just go back to you,
Right.
okay?
Basically, it's pretty easy. You've got 35 feet, take your roadside down, you said you don't care about it. Each
Yeah,
one gets
figure out.
17 and a half feet. So,
Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Do we have consensus? Okay, there's our direction.
Thank you.
Welcome to Sister Bay. We do have lots of rules. We, when we err, we try to correct them. And we will be addressing this in the future.
I think actually a very interesting case because it has brought to light
Right.
a lot of things, you know. These are definitely a trend. We're seeing more and more of them, and we need to get ahead of it and figure out what we're gonna do, so people don't have to come in like Tim did and sit through a meeting to find out what they can do. So it's a good thing.
Always learning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next agenda item, I don't have the number, garbage amendments.
So it's on page 16. One thing and this is here not because it's part of the zoning code, but because we don't know where else to put it, right? So it comes to this committee, but one thing we found with the short-term rental rules is we never, when we made a code requirement saying that when you have a short-term rental, let me back up. We were having problems with people leaving their garbage cans out the end of the road, people complaining, they'd sit there all week, garbage cans overflowing, it was unsightly, they put them out on Sunday, it caused a lot of problems. So the village adopted a rule that said if you have a short-term rental, they have to be kept up by your property, and you have to sign a contract where the garbage provider will come up the road or up the driveway, I'm sorry, and service it, leave it there and come back down. That way we avoided having garbage cans at the end of the road and people wouldn't see them if they were overflowing. One thing we forgot about was, well, what if it's an owner operated short-term rental? Because we didn't have any of those until this year. So what happens when you have the owner, they're there at the time of rental, they're using their garbage can, so the code right now would require that other unit to have a contract for door-to-door service. So you have owners can wheel their carts out to the road, but the other half has to leave them up by the house and the truck has to come up and service it. And it doesn't make sense. So it was just one of those things we never thought about because we didn't have any owner operated occupied short-term rentals. So we ran into the situation and our line of the code is they need a contract, but that doesn't make sense. So this is an attempt to try and fix the code. That, like I said, it's just one of those things we hadn't anticipated when the code was drafted. So you can see the recommended language I have there on page 16. We actually have somebody who owns a short-term rental who is in this situation and affected by it in the audience. Vivian Nino is the one that we actually first discovered this problem with. So, and Vivian too did send a letter to the board. It was in some of you might have read it in the correspondence packet, but I had told Vivian that I would bring it forward here as well because I really thought it was something we needed to address.
Wholeheartedly agree. If we would have had one in the past, when we made that change, we would have addressed it, but we didn't have one and never thought about it.
Yeah.
So, recommendation to the village board.
It's a recommendation to the village board. It does not require a public hearing because
It's in the municipal code.
yeah, it's garbage code. So.
Can I ask you a question?
I'm sorry, it's not a zoning code and it's not covering a fee, so it's not need a public hearing.
I have a question. There is someone that I'm familiar with that has a business and 2 doors down, they have a short-term rental. This person takes the garbage out every single week and they are kind of in the same question. I'm there all the time because this person owns the business. So this is another thing where, why am I paying twice? I couldn't answer it. In Vivian's case, to me, it's just a no-brainer because it would be silly using the same cans and all of that stuff. It just, that I understand. This one, I'm sure no one's going to agree with me on, but I kind of see this person's point as well because they work at a business and 2 doors down, they go out every week and put the garbage there and no issue. So I really wasn't aware that they had to sign a contract with short-term rentals to have going drive up the driveway. So I don't know if that would be an exception when you have someone that works right next to where they have their rental.
I just have to correct myself, so they're not, they're contracting for it, they don't actually have to sign a contract. No, they call up, hey. I
Well, they
need
can't get their
service.
license though, right?
Right, yeah. Yeah, so I am aware of one, I'm aware of a situation where you have a business and a couple doors down, he has a short-term rental. He's like, why can't I just use my business garbage? Well, he's, in that one, you know, he is carrying garbage from over here to over here. And that one I wasn't quite as sold on. You know, it's not as clear as it is this one.
Oh, yeah.
The owner's right there on the same property, right next door. So it made sense. But when you have, you know, when they're on different properties, to me, that does not make sense.
Would there be a situation where you could have them sign something guaranteeing that they will make sure the garbage is out every week because they are there every day of the week? So, I mean, I don't know how you would look at it, because their thing is, why do I have to contract with Going to drive up my driveway when I'm there to take it out to the curb? They wouldn't have to come up the driveway at all. I personally wouldn't want a garbage truck driving up my driveway all the
They
time.
use a small truck. It's not a full-size garbage truck that they use for the.
Well, I mean, I've seen them.
I think I think my personal opinion is that we have to see where those situations are. Like, this one is something we didn't think of, you know, it's a no-brainer. This other one may be something, I think we need to look at the details of it. You know, is it the same property? Is he there all the time? Is he a year-round resident? I mean, I think you have to look at
Do they
Yes.
never go on vacation?
the details of the case
Is their
to see.
business open 365 days a year?
And
Yeah,
how
I
do
think
you write that code?
Yeah,
Because
how do you
then
write
you have that
that?
ambiguity in there.
Yeah.
You can't expect, I mean, like, we're putting Julie in a terrible place. We say, okay, well, you need to figure out if this is okay based on the code. I don't disagree with you, Laurel, but I'm just saying, how do you write that code? Because
Well, that's why I'm
exceptions,
just throwing it out, because I wanted,
And that's why I think we'd have to look at the details to see if there's common things between other cases, you
Yeah.
know? What is that? Could it be written so it is clear? So I think it's worth looking at if we know which ones it's impacting. I'm aware of one that, but again, he's a couple doors down, so it's different properties. Yeah, different lots. This would have to go to the board if you're in support.
Is there a motion to, yes,
I've
yes,
still got a couple questions.
sure.
Vivian, are these separate buildings on your property?
One building.
One building?
It's one building with a mother-in-law apartment.
Okay. all right. Because I think that if they're separate buildings, there still may be a need for separate service. It may not be backup service managed. And that was the other part, that to be consistent with what we have in definitions, I would like to suggest that rather than owner occupied, we replace with on-site property management by owner. Because that's the wording used. I'm just putting it as a suggestion.
On-site,
The on-site property management, and I'm adding by owner. Because an owner could have somebody else managing their rental. And then that could negate their responsibility for taking garbage out.
we can have that conversation in the future when we make other text amendments.
Well, this is within the text of what Julie had there.
Oh.
In her red, she says, which are. Let's see, what was it?
Except for certain owner occupied rentals.
And I'm suggesting instead of that, that we say, except for site property management by owner.
But that says property management, that doesn't mean that it's owner occupied.
But when you put owner at the end of it, that,
So where I was going was that if you had a property with two buildings on it, that was one address, that would, one of them was in a short-term rental, that this would cover that also.
But it doesn't say occupied.
You know, I'm just thinking about some of the properties we have and some of the problems we have, and just let me think out loud a second. So I'm thinking of this one, it's got several units, and one accesses on this street, it's got a garbage can, this one accesses over here, it's got a garbage can. The owner's not there, but they're nearby. And we have a lot of problems with garbage. So I'm just thinking the best way to do that.
Well, and now understanding that you are in the same physical structure, owner occupied, does make sense in this particular case.
Maybe it needs to be clear, it's owner occupied building or.
Well, and that's what I was trying to make it really clear. So there's no question. Because owner occupied rental sounds like the owner's in the rental.
It does.
Well, they are.
well,
Well,
We're not,
they're in a separate unit.
No,
it is a separate unit,
It is all separate, yeah,
If that
separate
is,
entrance.
yeah,
separate
that,
entrance, okay.
if that is the intent, I can work with that as long as I know what we support. Just to move it forward, I mean, the goal is, if they're in the same building, same
If they're all
owner,
under one
yeah,
roof.
on the same property, under the same roof, I'm totally in agreement with doing this.
same property, same roof, same owner.
And I guess where this came up from was in part A, where it's talking about single family duplex and triplex dwellings. And is there enough capacity in just your standard
Oh, yes.
cans? Okay.
Yeah, we've had, up until this point, we've had long-term renters, so they're there, they were there all the time, and we had more than enough space in the garbage carts.
That's not the same as weekend partiers.
It's-
It is in a one-bedroom unit, it is.
I think when the owner is on site, when the property's being rented, you don't have as.
You do not have
I
Yeah.
parking.
agree.
Whole different clientele.
It is.
There you go.
Okay, so we will make a recommendation to the village board, and Julie will come up with new wording. And Nate and I will be there on the board to make.
And Patrice,
And Patrice, I'm so sorry, Patrice.
That's okay.
To make sure that it reflects what we talked about here today, before the board would move forward on it.
So what happens with Vivian as far as her license and her contract with going to come separate from the regular pickup? Does she have to cancel it?
Depends on what the board decides.
Yeah,
So it's not approved for her yet?
no, the board has to approve it.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion? Motion by Kane,
Second.
second by Heidler, all in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, P1 text amendment.
Skip page 17, 18, I don't know how that happened, but the WCSN got repeated, so. Okay, P1 text amendment. Some of this we've talked about before. So when we amended the P1 district 2 years ago, maybe, we took marinas out of there.
Yeah.
And, which is kind of crazy because we have a marina in our park district, so we made it non-conforming. So the First Amendment just puts it back as a permitted use, okay? And when you get
Well,
done,
I think it wasn't just public marinas, wasn't it?
I
just
think it was just marinas.
marinas, and that's why we took it out.
That would make sense. So this one makes it very clear it's a public marina, would be allowed. And then when you get down to green space, this is something we've talked about in the past, and you know, you guys, how the committee sometimes says, put this in your tickler file for a future amendment. this was one of those where we had talked about, we ran into an issue with the Historical Society property where there wasn't enough green space, and we said, well, what do we do? And I remember we amended the code once to accommodate it, and then they did something, and immediately they exceeded what we had just put in the code. And this amendment just basically adds a common sense element that says green spaces determined by the planning commission based on site plan review and best use of open space. Because there are times where they're gonna want something out there, and I mean, when you look at that property and you think they already exceed what's allowed by code. Is that what we want? Does that make common, I mean, is that what we want for a historical
And there's all
society?
kinds of space that I think is yet to be filled with other structures.
Yeah.
I think it still needs to grow.
I look at that property kind of as a historic village, you know, like a Vickery Village or something where you have lots of little shops throughout the whole. And right now, we're saying they can't put anything else out there. And you've got all this land, you can't do anything. So I don't think that's our intent or that I, or
I
what
don't think it
perceive.
should be our intent.
So this says, you know, you have to have green space, but it's gonna be determined based on site plan review, kind of that common sense element. It also then applies to, when you're looking at a building on a park property such as the sports complex, for example. Plenty of room, that's really not an issue out there, but it could be. I mean, when you think about, let's talk about the village hall. The village hall, the old village hall is actually on a piece of property. I'm thinking the boathouse is on a very slim, skinny piece of property. You know, sometimes when you're dealing with old structures, as we know, the codes just don't work. So this kind of says, you know, these are basically our properties or our partner properties. Let's look at them and use a common sense element when we're designing them. That's what that says. And then the same thing for the setbacks. You know, we've had, I'll give you an example in the parks we were citing. We were talking about putting a restroom out at Pebble Beach. It made sense to put it between a parking lot and a lot line. We would not have been able to do that because we have to be, you know, 50 feet off that lot line, which would put that restroom in the middle of a parking lot. When you're dealing with a park, it makes sense to tuck things off to the side because you want all that open space. So the side setback just didn't make sense there. So those are my recommendations when I reviewed it, but you know, it's up to you guys what you think.
You always look at me first.
Because
I know you got, I know I got no.
I know you have notes on it. And I would speak first, but I don't
I'm giving you a hard time.
have anything to contribute except that I like it.
It
No,
become-
I think it takes care of the problem over at the corner of the pass. And that's what we were looking for.
And the marina's
Yeah.
really close to the side lot line.
Are we gonna hit any problems with the Marina building coming up?
Well, we would have, because that's really close to a property line.
So this is, I guess what I'm saying is, we know that's the Marina build is likely to build a new building, and I know you've heard me many times that we've got a couple of zoning issues that we're gonna have to address. What I'm asking is, we're addressing those issues that you can foresee right now. I'm not saying it could come up with something totally different, but the ones that you were talking about, we're addressing.
I believe so, yeah. And it's not just because the marina, it's because we did have it in our file to revisit because of the Historic Society. So
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, but I also know that that same,
it'll fix
Okay.
that too. Unless something crazy comes out. So,
well, yeah, I get that. I threw that caveat in there first.
I think that, this commission in the future and how they use this is gonna really make a difference on my comment here, and that's just concerned that we had risk that there's a perception by the village that when it's a village property, they just do what they want. And I'm just asking rhetorically, I'm not being condemning, there is that risk potentially.
there's that risk. I will say this, we've held the village the same standards as everybody else so far. We have not, I mean, they've had to come in for, like the Parks building came to us for a site plan review. The Marina building will. The reality is though, in this particular thing, when you're looking at the P1 district, we keep having issues. We've wrestled with that open space, green space thing.
Like I said, I'm not in
Change it.
disagreement. I think it's something we just have to be very cautious with. and how
I think
it's
we have
applied.
to have hope that there won't be bad actors in the future. And that's all we have.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my caution.
That's it.
Or you can be so cynical as to say, well, that future plan commission could undo everything that we've done and go over that too. So that could happen, but at the same point, I hear what you're saying, Skip, is we need to make sure that if we're not able to live up to our standards, we need to adjust our standards.
And in the one other spot that I do have a more direct concern is that if park property is adjacent to, say, an R1 or something, where setbacks could really have an effect on
Correct.
somebody.
Yes.
But I think if you're abutting R1, you have to have a buffer yard. Correct, Julie?
You have to go by.
Is it by
the-
in parks also?
It's the more restrictive setback.
Of whatever that other zone is.
Yes.
I have read that.
Because I just was reviewing that for,
But if we're changing wording to allow this commission to make decisions based on good judgment, that could be overrun also. And that would be,
well,
that's a really big concern that I have.
that's not being changed. So if something came up against,
That is more restrictive.
the more restrictive, you would have to follow it, no matter what it says in parks. Because I was just researching that, for, the administration building ad hoc committee that made their recommendation on not building on the Lagerquist property and putting it next to the library where the soon-to-be old Parks Maintenance Building is.
Then you have residential. around.
And you have residential on the east and the north side, and now you have an additional, not just the regular setbacks, but now you have an additional 20-foot buffer. Our motion to, this, we have to go to public
This
hearing
has to
for
go to
this.
public hearing.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Bell. Second by Kane. All in favor, respond with an aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
So I have a question on that. Do we want to send that to public hearing now or wait until we have another matter for public hearing?
Do you see anything on the horizon that we would have to, well,
What's the urgency on this?
So eventually the marina, so the marina's gonna move forward, try and get, they're gonna ask the board for, to approve a contract for design services, design it, then they're gonna have it, construction drawings. So it's a ways before they would need it. My only concern is I know there's some other text amendments we've talked about. We've talked a little bit about, 2 homes a lot or different housing proposals, and I'm just trying to think about some of the stuff. Signage, we talked about awnings tonight and cleaning up the signage stuff.
I mean, I don't think it's pertinent, but if it goes past a couple of months, then I think we should have the public hearing. And I also think that tonight's agenda is relatively light in my opinion. So I think we should start talking about the things that we already discussed pertaining to signage and awnings or whatever at next month's meeting, if it's light.
Yeah.
Again, so that we can devote some time. I'm not saying that we'll finish that conversation in one meeting. I don't always think that that's a good thing, to think that you're done. I think it just you need to resonate with the conversation and come back and talk about it again. So that could take us a couple of months to do.
So I think we should set a date, like if we don't have it done, we should take it to public hearing in October or November.
October.
Okay.
That gives us August and September to have the other conversations.
And if we're close, putting it off, and there's something that we're gonna imminently do, putting it in November, fine.
Sure.
plan on that.
And I don't think that will hurt anything that the marina is doing.
No, I think they'll be okay.
Okay, housing RFP.
As you know, we own property at the corner of Ava Hope and Northwoods. And the Housing Committee, the Parks Committee, and the Plan Commission all discussed the idea of offering that property to a developer in exchange for building affordable housing with a park on it. And we had set some parameters, you know, it was limited to 20 units, 35 feet in height, 2 stories. At least 10% of the units had to be 3-bedroom, at least 20% had to be affordable per the formula I have in the staff report. And we put some rent ranges in there based on what was considered affordable. So we put it out for RFP, sent it to a long list of developers that I have, plus listed it on the Wisconsin League of Municipalities website. Had quite a few questions come in. Majority of people said, hey, to make this work, we have a model, it's got to be 3-story. A lot of people wanted a 3-story, and I said, I'm sorry. The company was very adamant, it is 2-story. And then I had some that wanted really high density on there. I said, I'm sorry, you know, that's not allowed. So they just decided not to submit a proposal. Tim Halbrecht did. Tim actually built the unit next door, the apartments next door, so he's familiar with that area. So his proposal, as you see in here, he's looking at 3 buildings with attached garages, 21 2-bedroom units, 3 3-bed and 3 1-bed, and 1 handicap unit. He would exceed the amount of density that we set, but I'll be honest with you, on this property, when you look at the site plan, it makes sense because there's so much room that it, in my opinion, it makes sense to have the 3 bedrooms. It would be done in phases is what he's proposing. He is proposing that 20% of the units be reserved for those earning below 80%. Basically, the information's in here, you've all read it. He does have that park plan in there as well. And if you remember, the park plan is that he uses that land to meet his density requirements. It's public, the public is allowed to use that. It's basically considered a public park, but it is, property is actually owned and maintained by the developer. So
We're looking at this from plan, I mean, I assume this is gonna go back to the housing committee, they're gonna look at this since they issued the RFP. And Parks is gonna look at it from their perspective, so
Right.
we're just looking at this from a plan commission perspective, we're not.
Right, we're not looking at it from a development agreement perspective, we're looking at it from the perspective of, does this plan make sense? Is this something we would approve? Is this the type of development we want? Because if it is, then we make a recommendation to accept the proposal, contingent on, of course, the housing committee's input and the parks committee's input. If everybody agrees, yes, this is a proposal, then we go to the board and we explain this is who everybody has agreed should be awarded the contract, basically. And then we begin working with the developer on the site plan and the building plans.
So when we came up with the 20 units, was that based off of what our code says? Okay. So
he's going over the code.
He is right. He's asking to exceed the density.
Isn't this already exceeding the density of 20? I mean, didn't we say we're comfortable going up to exceeding the density by going to 20?
what
So-
was,
It's 6
How many
units.
acres?
What is it? I think it's 6 units per acre, right?
Right, how
And
many acres?
it's about 2.5, if I remember. I don't have the proposal in front of me. And we had, I want to say it was like 16, I'm not sure. And we said, well, let's allow 20.
Wasn't part of that because of taking 1/3 of it as parkland? Whereas it looks like he's probably working, there's still open space there, but the parkland part of it's probably a little smaller.
Yeah, we didn't have any specifications on the park. Then we said, let's see what
I
they
was just
proposed.
trying to remember conversation.
Yeah.
I think that was where we ended up with that density.
I'll say, when I look at that property, and you look at how he has it laid out, there's still a lot of land there. Like if you look to I'm not sure if that's the north there, but the top of the site plan, there's quite a bit of land left, even
Well,
with,
he's managed to keep the buildings where the parking in the middle, the overflow parking outside the garages is all contained and not really visible, which is a benefit.
Something I'm really curious about what you said, Julie, is that there were other entities out there that did not respond to this because they had an ultra high density. I'm wondering if we should think outside of the box and see what that looks like. Because this isn't put 27 units on there. If there's something else that could do more, maybe we would be open to it if we saw it, but if we never even look at it, we're definitely not gonna.
But not a 3-story.
But I guess what I'd say is, what does that look like? What do you have surrounding you? You've got 2 stories surrounding there. If you're going incrementally from 2
You've got a
to
lot
3.
of one story in that area as you're coming in on 57 from the south.
Yeah,
It's mostly one story.
and it sits high.
And you're backing up against to the south and west is residential.
Okay.
Maybe on a different piece of property. But the bigger question is, and I know that we, for a couple of projects in the last 10 years or so, I think there were 2, don't ask me which ones, that we increased the density slightly, 2 or 3 units or something like that. And so this does not necessarily look too dense. So would we consider having a larger conversation about 6 units per acre? I mean, 8 units per acre, that means that there could be 20 units here. 10 units means that there could be 25. And there's space. So I'm wondering if that's limiting us moving forward the 6 per acre. And do we want to have that conversation?
Well, the option is density or sprawl. There's no, either you have more density or you have more sprawl. That's our choice that we've got to make. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. I prefer density, but that's my perspective. There's a valid point saying that you want sprawling when things spread out. But I do think that's a very good point, Denise, is if you look at what this was, it does warrant further discussion, especially as this village continues to, I don't want to say grow, but it's going to inevitably grow. I mean, you can't stop
We
that.
can't
Well,
stop that.
eventually you will hit capacity based on just your land. We're not in risk of that anytime real near future, but ultimately that could happen. The real question, I think, is in certain pockets, density works. Other places, it
does not.
It does not. And I mean, looking through this, my experience, we spent a year in Niagara Ridge while we were building the house. And it was a good experience, but you had a lot of land around you. It was open. I mean, the buildings were not that dense. So you didn't have that feeling of people being right on top of you. You get over to, is it Stony Ridge? What's the one off?
The Glen,
Down behind Shopko.
yeah.
Yeah, that feels a whole lot denser when you're in there. And so that's my only experience, but in certainly up in Niagara, I mean, it's the old ball pit. There's no trees around it to speak of, so it's much more open feeling too. But in a spot like this where you've got other apartments, yes, there's one story mostly, but that already feels kind of dense.
Well, Stony Ridge is
Yeah.
2-story.
Yeah. and
Right.
those other
There's a lot of
apartments
other that are
A
one back
lot
there.
of
So it's an area that
Yeah.
already has
Has,
a
yeah.
feeling of some density, so going a little higher density here,
that-
I don't think would be as big an issue. But if you start doing big developments in any open land, going too dense, I think we'd lose the
Okay,
balance.
so we can put that then on a light agenda also to have that conversation. Julie will notate that. Patrice?
I had a comment, I really think there should be more than one handicapped unit. Based on our population here in Sister Bay. That's my comment. I think I like the plan, I like
That's a good
how all
catch.
this looks, but, one handicapped unit? When
Well,
there's so many of us.
Yeah, we have
Getting
some in our
older.
building that was in a wheelchair, so, yeah.
Yeah,
There's a lot of other thoughts I have on this, but I don't think it's appropriate to talk about them at plan. I mean, one,
Because it's getting into the weeds.
it's
of
getting into the
project.
weeds, and I guess one, just a general, I think that that park area could be connected better to this community through walking trails and whatnot. Just some short ones that could connect to the shoals. There's a ton of people back there.
I like it. And I think that if all committees that are gonna weigh in on this like it also and wanna move forward, I think there is a real conversation to have with Tim about allowing 3 buildings there, increasing the density to that. There's still green space. And what would those trade-offs be? You know, I want to see a much larger park than what's here and more equipment. And I'm a little concerned. But again, that's getting in the weeds. So I can have all those conversations if everything pans out. But I was pleasantly surprised.
At a higher level, does the 20% set aside for the income adjustment, does that get rounded up or down? Because this could be, it's 5.4 with the number of units he's got, so is it 6 units or is it 5?
Oh, yes, it's 6.
Rounded up to 6.
Yes.
And
I'm sorry, I didn't understand where you were going at
Okay.
first.
And how is that rent set? Because what was listed in the proposal is kind of what the standard rents are. So how do we adjust the rents for the income district?
And that's where the housing committee comes in handy, because, you know, we have the formula in here that was recommended by the housing committee. The housing committee is the one who set that standard in the proposal. And they know exactly what those rents have to be. So
And I know, I mean, there's somebody, but I was trying to be, because Tim's comment in there was using the county adjustment, but the report that we had shows that Sister Bay is significantly below the county. And so all of a sudden, those rents, you know, to hit that income target group
Yeah,
would have
so-
to be a lot lower.
So we had a big conversation on that about, do we use the Sister Bay median income or the county median income? And we decided, the decision was to use, I believe, the county median income.
Okay, and that was what was in his,
Yes,
okay,
because originally, the first draft had it as Sister Bay median income, and then, I don't know if it was this committee or which committee, but they had changed it to county median. So recommendation to award the contract, so to speak, to Halbrook Builders contingent on approval of the Housing Committee and the Parks Committee.
That might be a little premature to say that we're going to approve this. I mean, I think that I would say general consensus is that we like this plan, that there's some other tweaks we want, but we need to get.
Well, so it's a proposal, so you, a proposal, you have to pick somebody and award them a contract that you can work with them on. So we still have to work out all those details, but, you know, when we do let's say we do a proposal for an architect, we eventually pick an architect, right? And then award them a contract, and then we work with them. It's the same thing. We have to, because he's not gonna go through all this work with no guarantee he's getting that job.
We only have this one proposal to choose from.
you know, if we're talking about changing densities, you know, if others didn't bid because they were trying to stay within the density level, and all of a sudden we're gonna go with a higher density number.
Well, I can say this, they could have proposed something, and I also know the ones that were concerned about it are the ones that are building the big high rises like in Green Bay. I can tell you who the developers were, you can look at their projects. we're talking city, big, tall buildings.
It feels like we're jumping quickly and inequitably if we allow for higher density and we exclude that without this.
You guys can repost it. I don't know if it's gonna change anything, to be honest with you. We had it out there, we did a RFP, it was a 2-month RFP. To try and solicit as many people as we could. And, you know, it's an expensive area to build. And we wanna,
I like that he's a local builder. I like that he's done other things here.
He's done a good job on the things he's done in the village.
He has done a good
Yes, yeah.
job.
I guess I'm just,
His projects are always good.
So
I'm just asking the question.
I want to, I'd like to see this, if we're gonna approve it, I want to see it come back with better connectivity on the trails and more park space. And then if he wants to address that I'm not comfortable accepting what's here right now. I'm comfortable giving feedback saying, yeah, we're okay with the 27 units. This was not what the RFP was for, but we appreciate you did it. We're good with this because of how you've done it. We want a little bit more tweaking of this before we're actually gonna say, yeah, we're gonna accept it.
But see, but then we have to get into the weeds. Because I like that he added 13 spaces, but we have 27 units. And I don't believe, because there's no site plan here with measurements, I don't think that there can be any parking in front of the garage outside and have a 20-foot turn aisle. I think that there should be more parking, especially, you should be able, let me back up. I think building number 3, what kind of faces north, that's at the top of the screen?
Mhm.
Okay. I think that should be cut down to an 8 unit. So he can push it a little bit more north, and so he and get away from that corner where he has to meet that setback on the right-hand corner. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
And so it could slide, and if that building then could have parking outside of their garage. I mean, what if somebody has a 2-bedroom and they have a child of driving age and they have 3 vehicles and now there's no place to go?
I will tell you what apartment owners use their garage for.
Storage?
Storage,
Oh, and everybody
So-
parks outside?
yes.
Oh,
I guess what I think is, I think we need to get feedback from the housing committee on what they're gonna want, because they could change this drastically. So us approving what's here doesn't make any sense. I don't disagree with that, because I also would like to see a trail go right through there that connects up to Northwoods Drive, so you have a way to cut people cut off that whole corner, because you're gonna have all those people in the but I think we're getting into the weeds and we're gonna have somebody else make other changes to it. So I'm comfortable giving positive feedback saying, we're good with this, but we need to have the other committees take it and have their input on it, and then see what that looks like after that. That's where I'm at on this. I'm not comfortable accepting this proposal as it is right now, and I don't think it makes sense to go into the weeds, try and dig down and everything to.
I think we have some room to negotiate this. I mean, I wouldn't be able to approve what's up here.
no, and
Yeah,
but
no, it's just accepting his
Yeah,
proposal.
I mean,
Yeah.
the proposal sounds good.
Yeah.
But,
And we're okay with increasing the density. I refuse to say 27 units because I think, in my mind, we might have to lose one of those units if my idea other people like.
right, so we're accepting the
concept.
the proposal to work with him. The weeds, the trail, those details will come out during site plan review and that whole process that we have to go through. And we'll get into the weeds, like the size of the building, the location of it, the trails, things of that nature. But when basically we have to decide, is he the proposer we want to work with?
I would say yes. I have a question. Does he own the abutting property?
No.
Is that part of the J. Taylor property?
You know, let me think of this. I think that's actually not his. It's, I can never remember her name.
Marissa's?
No, there's a woman out there, Nancy.
Oh,
Do
that,
you have GIS up?
Yeah, I do.
the one that has 2 units out there and hasn't built the 3rd unit? The other apartment building?
Well, I
Oh,
thought
was
those
that
were the J.
Kim?
Taylor.
No.
Kim. Does Kim own the property next door or is that
So
Tim?
So that's,
I thought it was Kim.
She is more north, Tim is south of her 2 buildings
so I'm just,
where you live. And then, so then the pond is there and this is to the left. So it is
it's Marissa to the.
to the north.
To the north, and it's, you're saying what's across the street?
No, right
that's
next to the
east,
proposed park. Like
where the
adjacent to
pond
So
is.
it'd be right to the east of this.
Marissa's north,
That
who
is-
is,
Doko Dwell in Madison, I think that's that.
That's Kimberly,
okay,
Hey, so is that a single family or
Hazen.
multi?
multi.
that's a perfect.
And then Tim owns,
south of that.
The ones closest to the highway?
gee, on the other side of the cul-de-sac, so to speak. So when I look at this, Kim is right here
Uh-huh.
and Tim is right here. They both go out from Able.
Okay,
towards the
I
highway.
just thought he owned all of
No, he basically owns what's closest to the Eagle Mechanical building that's going up. That's his
Okay.
building.
because I was just trying to figure out that if he owned that adjoining property, he could somehow expand that park. So it would be bigger as long as he owned both properties, but that's, forget it then.
So I think your concern is very valid on the parking spot number, so. I'm just thinking back on our experience, and most of those spots were full. And we
I don't want more asphalt, but we also have to be realistic on how it's going to be used. And that's fascinating information around.
Yeah, because almost everybody parks it, well, we had 2 cars, we had to park one outside all the time on weekends, but. Actually, in our building, most people put their cars inside.
Well, and I'm sure that's all stuff that will work out. You know, when I talked to Tim, he was like, you know, they're not gonna invest tens of thousands of dollars in a design and site plan and building plans
Oh, yeah.
unless they know they're gonna get the proposal.
Right, but we'll sit down after it's gone to all 3 committees and then say, okay, this is what we heard from the other 2, and these are what we would like to see. Is that doable for you?
I did not do the math to find out how many square feet his units were on, say, a 2-bedroom.
I did not.
There weren't enough dimensions on there to do it accurately.
I think he can come up with that, but maybe next time it comes back to us. Well, I believe the housing committee is gonna have a lot of questions about the unit makeup and all that, which I've got, but I, again, don't wanna go down that path. There's other people that are looking at that. So you're saying we accept the proposal and that commits us to working with him in good faith, is that?
So, yeah, so we could accept the proposal contingent on the other committees accepting it as well. And then we would take it to the board and they would agree that he is the one to be awarded the contract that we would work with. Meaning, he's the one that as long as we get a successful development agreement, he's the one who would, the land would be deeded to. We'd have the development agreement, which would have the stipulations about what must be done in exchange for that. The timing of it, the phasing of it, all the details.
How does that return on investment for the village actually look when it's done? I mean, it's the taxpayer money that bought the land, so yes, getting a park, and I get that, there's soft things there, but
So what we're doing is we're meeting our housing needs, helping meeting our housing needs is a big one. Providing some affordable housing, which we don't have, and we're getting a lot of eventually a lot of tax revenue off of it as well.
Just not as a plan commission, but as a resident, I'm just asking the question,
So
because that's the question the board will need to answer.
when
Those are-
when the village ended up with this property, when Keith Garrett just went bankrupt or walked away from it or whatever it was that happened. I think we were on the hook for $590,000. Because we had put infrastructure in the ground for him to, that we were supposed to get paid back. This happened when I was not on the board, I'm happy to say. So that loan has been paid off for a few years now. And we sold 10 lots to the housing partnership for $10,000 a lot. I think they got a grant. Is it a grant?
Yeah.
Okay, for $100,000. So they paid us $100,000. And so, yes, we probably overall are out $500,000 for all the property that was up there. But when you think about what's going to be there and how we help our own community and the revenue that will come in over the years,
Oh, this is good history, because I don't,
yeah. Yeah, and it's something that we all knew kind of when we got stuck with the property. It's like, well, what do we do about it? And we hemmed and hawed and talked about it, but not really in depth for a few years, wasn't it, Nate? It wasn't a snap decision. And there were some dissenting voices also. It wasn't unanimous from the get-go at all. But in the end, we felt that it was relatively a small price to pay for what it could be. And I'm really, really grateful to your housing committee, Patrice, who came up with this idea, because it really was brilliant. And now we have this.
I think there's also a matter of, I hope the housing committee asks for more from this, but again, that's their role, not ours, to make sure that we're getting that truly affordable housing that we want to get from it. And I think that what is being presented, I don't feel warm and fuzzy about being affordable. And I think that could be part of this, is when we start to contribute. This isn't just a development. This is something that we've got skin in the game. We have expectations. So we've got to make sure we get that value. That's not what we're looking at right now. I don't think you could judge this project based on what the proposal is right now. You got to look at what comes out of the other committees.
I hope they're okay with it, because they actually set the parameters, which we used in the proposal. So they're the ones who, it wasn't us, the plan commission, who said X amount has to be affordable. It was the housing committee said.
Right, but they have to also, we also have to figure out, your committee or in this committee, how they remain affordable. Because if you, the first time that you rent them out and you're at a certain level, and 2 years from now, they just go into market rate, we haven't gained it. I mean, it's still housing,
but
But
it's not filling a need that we're.
right?
Yeah.
It's not filling the need that we intended it to fill.
Yeah.
So how do we make sure that for certain units or a certain amount of units are priced differently in perpetuity?
And I think that's what we let some other committees
Right.
do.
So I'm hoping we would get that from your committee, Patrice. So I will, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Did you get all that, Sarah? That was a lot.
was-
No, it's everything that Julie said.
All right, you got it.
And you know what? After, whenever you feel comfortable and you hear a conversation going a certain way and you think that we're gonna vote up, you can write the motions for us
And just read it
if
to
you're
us.
comfortable with that.
Give her a little bit of time to figure this
Okay.
out. I mean, like, this is,
That's
that
what I
took
said.
years and years. so.
Yeah.
You want to repeat what you said, so say?
Yeah, what is the motion?
We're accepting the proposal.
A recommendation to, yeah, we are
Yeah,
making a
contingent.
recommendation to accept the proposal contingent on the housing committee and the parks committee also accepting the proposal.
Motion by Berta,
Second.
second by Val. Any other discussion? All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
E-bike shed. So this, first of all, you've read the staff report. We have to decide whether we want to reconsider the request. Basically, the request was regarding the side setback and there was a metal shed. We turned it down primarily because of the metal shed, I understood. They now have a proposal for a wood shed, so do we want to reconsider the request? Which would allow them to encroach on that setback in the park. I do have a photo of what they would like to put out there if we want to reconsider it.
So we need a motion to reconsider.
Right,
So moved. Motion by Berto,
second.
second by Champeau. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, so we had pretty much, my understanding was everybody was okay with the location, you know, moving it south of the trees and then planting some trees, kind of tucking it back behind the yacht club, but the issue was the metal building. We didn't want to set a precedent, the code was very clear, no metal buildings, and so we had voted no. So they did come back and they do have a proposal for a shed. Which shed, they came back, it's a much more elaborate shed than I would have expected, but I did get it.
Probably because there's a lot of options out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you one for Sarah for the file. Or they quick got a picture of a shed. They did ask, they said, well, we can do this, but we want the village then to help us move it every year. We can't do that because we don't have the equipment, but that'd be a liability concern as well. So this is what they have proposed. You know, I did just throw out some ideas on the back as well for other ideas of something you might want, maybe a three-sided shelter, maybe something open that people can use when it's not e-bike rental season. You know, maybe people park their bikes under there, or I don't know, but
So, yeah, so they were storing the bikes in there.
storing, yeah, they want to store the bikes in there. And they are, they're storing them.
I don't-
No, it's
yeah,
gone
that-
now.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
'Cause I went- I have to admit, after being the one that said, you know, setting a precedent on metal sheds, and I went by and took a look at it, you didn't even notice it.
I know.
Because it was.
Well, you
all-
didn't notice it in the location, because
Right.
they put it in a good
The
location.
location was good and it was a low building. It
Yeah.
wasn't,
But if they had moved it more in compliance with the setbacks, I think it really would have stuck.
oh, it absolutely would have.
So I'm sorry. I don't think an open one, I like the idea of it can be used for other things, but they want to lock them up. I wouldn't want my very expensive equipment. I mean, good God, we had, you know, three or four stop Right, signs
exactly.
pulled out of the ground on the 4th of July weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, my question is, did Parks approve to leave it there year round or to move it?
Parks had approved, the discussion was a temporary wooden shed.
Okay. And they gave him a 3-year contract?
They recommended a 3-year contract. That's all contingent on our committee approving the shed and the location.
I personally don't like the idea of leaving it there year round. So is this movable?
Well, the idea was that they would have to move it off the property, you know, when it's not the summer months. This one here, like I said, it's not on a, usually if you're gonna move a building, you know, it's got a different type of foundation under it or bottom on it.
Skids under or something.
If it looks like this, I have no problem if it stays there year round.
All right.
Do they own it or do we own it then?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, not
I
that,
mean, it's it's public property, it's a park. And I don't know why a business should be able to keep their building on it year round.
So if they put it there and they give it to us and they have it for the term of the rental of their agreement, does that work?
Works for me.
And I also think we should pour a slab.
They should force it.
They should, I mean, they should have to, they're gonna have to make whatever investment that is for their 3-year term. And if they extend it beyond that, I think that we look at keep renting that out to whoever's connected to e-biker like rental.
So what happens with maintenance and upkeep on it, and that become responsibility of the parks?
It would, but we'd have to get revenue to pay for that. I mean, and there's a contract involved, so.
Right, we get 10% of their gross. Which in the beginning may not be a lot, but it all adds up from everywhere. And I would think that it wouldn't need maintenance for some time.
5 or 10 years. 5 years at least. before
5,
we do
yeah.
anything.
Well, it's gonna be paint or stain or whatever.
Yeah.
All we had to do was put wood on the outside of the metal one. I thought of
Just
that
like
later.
one of
So
those
true.
garden ones you see on the side of the road all the time that people always put them on the back of their truck. and then-
Oh, shoot.
Well, what they had was small enough that you could move it easy. This looks much more.
Yeah. If they have to put if they want to do a slab, it's gonna be very expensive, right? They're not gonna want to do that. That would be well over $1,000. I mean, I put a slab under a hot tub and it was $1,000. It's about the same size.
Plus us $1,000.
Would our guys be able to pour a slab, or would it be the same thing? I know the previous DPW was teaching them how to, do the bench slabs and different things of that nature. I don't know the height of it.
So if we accept this would end up going back to parks though, because now we're talking about a structure going out to park property. I mean,
Yeah, I
I would think, and then we could ask Eric at that point, to also it'd be a fair place for Eric to, if it's not a perfect slab, it's not the worst place to learn.
I'm not sure I'm in favor of us getting involved and trying to do something permanent. or temporary use of things. I mean, you look at, not that what they have for their other storage is that aesthetically pleasing, but
You're saying what they've got down by the water?
yeah, those plywood white boxes. But not dimensions on it, I can't say yeah or nay on it.
Well, right, I mean, this could be way taller than the fence.
Oh, yeah.
And I would not be in favor of that. I mean, the other one was, low profile.
Yeah.
And I don't have their email with me of what
The dimensions are.
This offhand, this looks 7 feet tall to me. Like I could walk.
I hope not.
Well, I was seeing that as 5 feet.
Yeah, hard to say.
But yeah, that's exactly the problem.
Yeah.
That sums it up perfectly.
What they had there was about 4 feet. It literally was below fence line, tree lines, it's behind the cedars. It was,
I think you can set some specifications. You can say we want it to look like this, but it cannot exceed X, Y, Z. They just have to live with that. If you're willing to allow one end either has to be removed every year, or if you allow it permanently, what those conditions are.
So no more than 5 feet tall. I mean, that seems like a reasonable height to me.
Well, the other one wasn't 5 feet, was it?
I mean, it was literally just barely taller than the bikes.
Four feet tall, 8, that was what, 6 feet deep, because it was a little bit deeper,
Yeah.
something like, maybe it
Or
wasn't.
did
even
they
deep.
say it was square?
I think they did tell us at
was
Parks that
square.
it was square.
Well, no, I measured it.
it.
I went and got my measuring
Yeah.
tape and I measured it. Yeah,
7 by 7?
no, that's what they thought it was and it was smaller than that.
Do you remember, Sarah?
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was 7 by 7.
Okay.
In the. Yeah, probably close to that.
Okay. Lots to decide.
So in the meantime, are they renting down there?
They did so I don't know if they're still renting, but they don't have they know they can't rent the shed. I think they closed the shop. I think they closed it up. I don't think they're doing anything. Oh. They
Not
don't
even
have
the
a
kayaks?
contract. No, they have a contract on the kayaks.
I say we send this to Parks and it comes back to us. How's that?
That's fine.
What are we saying, Parks? We're saying that we're okay with something that was the same dimensions as that other? We just want to construct out of wood?
Let's hear what Parks has to say, and then next time we'll know what Parks has said, if they have any criteria, if any of their concerns have changed, if Parks thinks it should be permanent or temporary, we'll have the dimensions,
Okay,
Okay.
and everything.
yeah.
Okay.
So I think the conversation should continue, so we will refer it to Parks and then it will come back, because nothing is happening with them on this for this season. So this is not urgent, right?
So our reconsideration basically is that we like the idea of a wood shed, but we want more information and we want to know how Parks feels about it being permanent versus temporary.
And if it's permanent.
And the
then-
size.
And the size
Yeah.
and.
And if it's permanent, who's gonna
And
maintain it?
location, and we need to know.
Yes.
And we should also think about what Skip said earlier of, if we're putting in our setback, are we following our own zoning rules? That's a fair, this would be an example of that.
I think originally when we were talking temporary, it wasn't that big of a deal because we knew it could be moved.
Yeah,
And it
all
still
this
might be temporary. But
Okay, fee schedule.
so every year we look at fee schedule, usually try to do it in July. We're a little behind this year because we had some, we have to look at some stuff regarding sales tax and some other things, but I know the board recently discussed some of the fees, making some of them more high. In particular, they were talking about, I think courtesy review maybe. They didn't specify exactly which one, but we have to look at it anyway for the fee schedule. So I've highlighted in yellow all those fees that this committee is responsible for. Just want to have a conversation whether we think they've changed or what, and if so, why or what that is.
Well, before we open it up, I think to the commission, I think we should ask, and Sarah's probably a little too new to have an opinion yet. So we will ask, or I will ask you, is there anything that stands out to you that that you think should need to be addressed? Just as an example, a conversation you and I were having, and I don't know that we can actually, your comment was, I don't know that we can really actually change the sign permit fee, but some of them take a ridiculous amount of time and multiple revisions to get approved for $100.
Sign permits and sandwich board signs are probably my least favorite thing because I spend hours on them. A sign permit is $100, sandwich board sign is 50. Crazy amount of time on them. But the problem is, my concern is, and your fees are supposed to reflect the cost of doing the service, right? My concern is if you make it cover the cost, people aren't going to get the permit. Because if your signboard is only worth $100, you're not going to pay $200 for a sign. You know, it just doesn't make sense. That's one of those that I think we just have to accept. I will say that the festival intent permit, I think, is too high. That's $25. There's really not much to look at on those.
We can't go lower than $25.
Yeah, I've,
Yeah.
many times over the years, I've said that there's a base amount of money. If you, having staff touch something,
It's $25.
yeah, and that's the lowest one out there, and that's one I kind of looked at thinking like, can we really do this for $25? So I think it's informative that that's the one you mentioned, Julie.
Yeah, you know, I think some of them, like, you know, you're paying for, plan commission site plan and building review, okay, that's $1,500. I think that's very fair. Most of the time, almost always, because I will, you know, we look at some of the cases we've had, and I could name names, I'm not going to, but you have a consultation with them, you meet with them, they have different plans they're coming in and bringing in, they have 25 emails, phone calls, they'll stop in. There's a lot of time involved in site plan review before it ever even comes here. And then when we make a decision, there's a lot of time where they're like, I don't understand why I have to do this, or, you know, and then of course there's drafting the development agreements, because I draft development agreements now, nobody else does that, and development agreements $500, you know, by the time you get to that point, but I think those are very fair. What I would say is, and I don't know about this, what you feel about this, is a lot of times after they get site plan review, and this is one thing that has always bothered me, so you go through site plan review to change your retail office to a restaurant, we review everything, and then we still require a $500 permit, standard zoning permit, they fill it, they check change of use, they give us the plans. We need that, because what that does is it actually triggers the building inspector and it triggers the assessor. And sometimes there's a little bit more work you have to do on it, but that one, I have a tough time with saying, hey, I need another $500 to write per development agreement, you know, per plans approved by village board. Other than that, I think everything is spot on. I'll be honest with you. We looked at this a while back and we went through and said, what does it actually cost to do these? And like I said, the one that gives me heartburn is the sign stuff. You can't raise everything when you get the permit.
Yeah, but we have Carla now, and then to get a so I do think, I understand your point, but we have somebody now who is addressing compliance. And if you don't get a permit, then you pay double.
Yeah.
Is there a market rate for those sign permits that we could compare other villages, what they're charging?
Yeah, we could.
Because frankly, I think that I could see that being a very high cost to someone, because it's their right to market and advertise. And to me, I would say, well, sure, I'm gonna have to spend at least $1,000 to put a sign out in our village to bring people in. I wouldn't bat an eye at that. I mean,
For the
frankly,
permit.
if I was, for the permit. If I was a business owner and you told me it's $1,000 for me to put a sign out that says, come into my coffee shop, that's fine.
Boy, Steve, I wish you
Yeah,
were.
I don't think that-
When they come
I think we
Yeah,
should probably talk
yeah,
to some of
that's-
the business community. I think that would go
I
very
wouldn't pay it.
shocking.
That's a steep.
But I think that's a
That's
great
a
point,
steep-
Steve.
I'm
I-
sorry, Steve.
I think we should find
This is a
out,
steal.
let's.
I look at
let's
it as marketing cost. But anyhow,
Sure,
it's
that's
just-
a rational, logical way to look at it.
okay.
New business owner trying to get started
Exactly.
Yeah, when
is
they don't,
seeing all these barriers in front of them.
Like,
Exactly.
I mean, the number
I
one.
mean, I compare it to stuff that I do, like in my home, like to put a 20-foot piece of fence. You know, I had to pay someone $1,000 for that piece of fence. And yeah, it's the cost of having stuff and doing business and running things. That's the way I,
See, I also have that very similar philosophy that there are costs to business.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I would say this, if your sandwich board signs were higher, you might get away from people buying. A lot of people buy these plastic or metal ones, which we just will not allow. And they buy them and then they're like, well, I already bought the sign. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I wish you had contacted us first. And it might maybe help people slow down and say, yeah, maybe I should go buying it unless I check it out first. I don't know.
I think that's the great point, Steve, is that we should look and see what some of the similar costs are at the county and look at some of the villages, look at Ephraim and Egg Harbor and see what cost they have. And it's not gonna be an apples to apples, but just have an idea of where we're at
what
relatively.
range,
Yeah.
is out there.
And I mean, maybe even we throw, I think it's gonna be a rough comparison, but even somebody outside of Dora County, I think that's, depending on what part of Wisconsin, that could go a long way the other way, and it may not be that useful information.
I know we looked at it the first time we did the major renovation to this, revision to this. And at that time, I'm not saying it's the same, but the other communities don't have the same processes, so we didn't have a lot to compare. I think signs, they probably do. I think we could find something with signs. I was also telling Denise, back in the day, UW Extension had a template where it was a fee calculator to help you figure out what your fees should be. And you plug in, you know, the amount of time it takes and clerical time and is there a meeting involved and all that other stuff. It would help you determine what the fee should be. I don't know if it's still out there, but that's something else to look at too. But yeah, I mean, so I don't think we can look at all of these, say, let's go look at all of these in another community. One, there's no time, and the other one is I know a lot of the communities don't have the same things we do. But if there's certain ones you think we should look at, I think we could definitely look at that, sign permits being one.
So aside from the headache of the sign permits, what is the real time that's spent if somebody knows the code and just comes in with an application? I'm glad I was.
I don't know,
I mean-
Steve. I don't know, Skip, because I've never had that.
Okay. So when they get,
And there's always arguing, and they always still present, even after Julie gives them the permit, and what our guidelines or
okay, so
criteria
that goes
are,
with,
and they
permit
still
application.
present things that aren't allowed in the
Okay.
code.
And so we have a policy that after it is determined that it needs code, it goes to plan commission chair for design review. This committee set that policy, or a previous plan commission. So that's an added expense, but she's not charging it for us. She does get a stipend to be plan commission chair, but that's another added expense. So
well, I'm just.
there's a lot
I
involved
mean,
in it.
when it said fee schedule, my only question was, how do we cover our village time cost?
Yeah, I don't want to say anything about this one on my desk. It was a very cooperative company, a very good company to work with. And I think that's the fourth drawing.
How many sandwich boards permits do we have in the village? A lot.
No, we,
Really?
Country Walk, a lot of those people, I shouldn't say a lot there. We have them, I will say, we have a
I
lot of
have one,
violations
Base
out there.
Camp has one, you go down the street, I don't think Stabor
I think
Al's does.
I think Midsummer had one.
Midsummer has one, Happy
Chow has
Coffee
one.
has one,
Did the boat
Chow.
rental have one?
Lure, I don't remember, I
Boat
don't
has
think
one.
Boathouse has one.
No, but the boat rental.
I think they
has-
do.
No, they had to
You
get
would
rid of
know.
that, because they had too much
And
signage.
I saw one today in front of the bowl.
For the
Um,
alley, Bisbee's has one, Spot
On deck.
has one,
Saver.
Saber
I'm
has
not sure
one.
what I'm doing.
I mean, I think just downtown, there's probably pretty close to a dozen, if not a few more.
There's quite a few violations on that. I can tell you which ones are in violation. One I have to send on our property, and I did it last year, and it's back there again on village property, but, you know, it's constantly chasing these sandwich board signs. Where you give a permit, you go out there a year later, that's not what the permit says. So it's,
My question was, just because I think if we did away with those, they could put their effort into a sign on their building or wherever, instead of something that I'm gonna trip over walking into Happy Coffee.
I
because
think they
it's-
like it. I think if they like it, especially if they can change it every day,
I suppose.
you know, they can promote a sale or a
Yeah.
special.
Yeah.
Lunch special.
I don't have an issue with them when they look good or when they're done right, because they're cheeky, you know, they're kind of,
Time has a nice one. They put their lunch special on every day and it's very,
there's some
Important
really
to
nice
do.
ones.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's look at sign permits and sandwich board signs. If there's nothing. Nothing else.
I'll just make a comment about one of the fees that's very low, and I don't want to change it. It's the launch fee at the marina for $10. That is a steal to me, to be able to come to one of the best marinas on the planet and only have to pay $10 to drop your boat in, and you get to park too. That's,
And
but-
not pay for
and
parking.
I thought about, why don't we raise it, but it's
Well,
silly
they
to
will
raise
blame
it
you.
because it's gonna raise so little money.
I'm not sure, but I think that's dictated by the DNR.
I was
Yes,
gonna
well,
say that
I
too.
heard rumor
Yes.
that $9 goes to the DNR and $1 goes to the village. Is that true?
It has something to do with
Yep.
the DNR.
So that's just, this is a wonderful deal.
Yeah.
Wisconsin would just do that with pump outs like Michigan.
Does anybody have anything else that they want to talk about?
So for future agenda, you get discussion on the sign awnings.
Yes, so, if we're moving on, is that what we're going to skip?
I don't know.
We're on
Denise
to
was
7.
wrapping up, so.
Denise, we're on to 7 for matters.
Permit report?
Question.
Yeah, about permit report?
Yep.
Okay,
Soul Harbor Jewelry.
I
What
have,
in the world is that?
I have that one circled on Old Stage Road, and why do they have a sign
Yes.
permit? We don't allow off-premise signage in the village.
I know where this is. Give me a second. I think she's in Country Walk.
Oh, maybe her
Okay.
That's her
home
main
address,
address.
okay.
It's in the country. What?
I think that it is.
Where?
Maybe it's in a lower level.
I didn't sign off on that.
Try it in. Denise, this was, remember she had a nice wooden round sign and it had leaves and stuff.
Oh, I remember the leaves. Yes, okay.
Hmm.
I don't remember the name of that.
What you're seeing here is, I
It's
don't
in the
think you're,
country walk?
yeah, I don't think this is the name of the business. I think this is the name of the applicant. And that's why you may not recognize it. I'm trying to think what something with an E. I can see the sign in my head.
From here on out, I will make sure I put the business name in that first box. I apologize.
That's okay.
Business name.
Yeah, I think she's in Country Walk, real pretty sign. I'm gonna say Essence or something like that, but that's not right, but anyway.
So here's a question. So white are pending, yellow are issued, and Ecology Sports has had a sign out forever. Base camp.
I wrote Joel about that. He did come in, he applied for the sandwich board. He said, all I did was switch out the board, and I have to get back to it. He gave it to me a while ago.
How long are Frontiers permits good for?
If I remember right offhand, I think they have a year to start the project, as long as they do what's on that permit, then they can renew it for one term, I think.
I remember having the conversation with the sign for Dwell, that they had already bought it and it was flat. And then we asked her to make it 3D, but I don't think I ever saw the 3D, did I?
Yeah, and she did.
God, I remember nothing
And she
anymore.
she did make it 3D. She sent me a picture of it. think she did. I don't know, Denise, I could be the one who's in it. I thought there's enough
I
stress. in
remember the
there.
long conversation, but I don't remember seeing the final product. Is, I'd like to change our approach to it.
Um,
I would like to. One of the nice things that Bo did is he treated me like a child and would come to my business with the sign permits. So I could see the whole entire folder, look at everything, and I would sign the piece of paper. So that's not gonna happen with you because you know zoning and you are busy. So I just need to come into the office to look at the entire file and sign the act instead of me just giving you an email saying, okay. I need to see the whole file.
Yeah, and Sarah and I have talked about too, about revising the application forms.
Okay.
So there's a space, because the application forms are not
2 years ago, they were supposed to be changed
I
for my
know.
signature.
We talked about it, to change them, and I told Sarah we had this conversation, it's not a high priority, but it
I
is
know.
something to put on that to do
Yeah.
list. So. Because then you're actually signing off on the actual permit.
Right. And there's just a couple after the fact permits for additional bedrooms and STRs.
Right.
So they lied on their application,
No,
what's the issue?
a lot of times people they buy a house and it's a 4-bedroom house. They come in, they get for a short-term rental license for a 4-bedroom house. We're like, sorry, our files only show it's 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom.
Okay,
I didn't convert that, I bought it that way. I'm really sorry. I wish you had,
okay,
done
so it's
more."
that same issue.
It's
that we-
nothing nefarious. It's people are really just buying something, not realizing there's a violation on the
Sure.
property and then having to fix it.
Okay.
I have a question. You brought up the bedrooms in the STR. If there's a bedroom in a basement of a home and there's no door
Access.
or outside access,
That's
is
illegal.
anyone checking to say you can't advertise this as a 3-bedroom because 2 are on the first floor, 1's in the basement, there's no access other than the basement steps? Because in real estate, if that bedroom is in the basement and there's no egress.
Yep.
It's not considered a bedroom.
Correct.
So what we do is when they apply for the permit, we look to see, was that bedroom on the original plans when that house was permitted? And then if not, somewhere along the line it was illegally converted. And so our code does require a bedroom to be, I don't have it in front of me, but basically a confined area. Like you can't just have a loft and call that a bedroom, right? Because there's like no enclosure, it's not a confined area. So we require that, when we issue our permit for that conversion, because we're just looking from the land use side. And then we tell them, and it goes right on the permit, that they have to call the building inspector to determine if a permit is required from him. And then that's up to him, because we don't enforce the state's UDC code, Uniform Dwelling Code. We're just looking from a land use perspective at the village level.
But that would be, if there's no egress, that would be an illegal bedroom.
Well, I mean, in our house, we have what could be a full bedroom and a full bathroom. There is no access to outside other than a window it's not a complete walkout, so it's like halfway up. But in real estate, they can't call that a 3rd or 4th bedroom because that's just an extra room down there. I could use it for what I wanted, but then
You just
I'm
happen to
thinking-
throw a bed in there, yeah.
Yeah, but for a short-term rental, when you don't have an outside access in a basement, I wouldn't want to be responsible for having somebody down there if there was a problem. So I was just curious as to what we follow up on.
Yeah,
that.
ours is from the land use side, and then there's this, we don't do the health and safety side of it, but I would hope maybe DACAP is, maybe their insurance company is. I don't know if Brett's going out there. It's hard because for Brett, if these are old, it's been done 10 years ago or whatever, and he has to go out there, he can't see the wiring, he can't see the ventilation, he can't see any plumbing, so I'm not quite sure what he does with all of them. Home inspection stuff. So they need a home inspection. If DATCAP does not go out there once every 3 years, we do require them to have a home inspection.
Are they required when they first get a license or within a 3-year period?
They are required, our code requires a home inspection if DATCAP has not inspected it every 3 years. So if DATCAP hasn't been out there in 5 years, they need a home inspection. If DATCAP hasn't been out there in 3 years.
I mean, some of the
Well,
homes,
DATCAP wasn't even doing it. They were doing it by video, for God's sakes. They weren't even on premise.
because when it all started going crazy here, everybody was just selling their homes and, I mean, nobody would have been in there to inspect to say, oh, this is a basement bedroom, but you don't have any outside access.
Yeah,
I was just curious.
there's a lot of old conversions out there where people just converted the bedroom with the downstairs den.
Well, sure.
It happens a lot. We see them through the short-term rental program, but I'm sure there's a lot of properties where there's no short-term rental involved, and that's what's happening.
The renting makes it an issue in my mind, because I don't think that they would legally be able to rent to a tenant in a basement apartment if there wasn't outside access.
Okay. I think we have a list of matters to be placed on a future agenda that came from this meeting. Is there any other ideas, suggestions?
So what I have real quick is, perhaps looking at historic signage, awnings and signage, commercial center and what should be allowed there. And then I do have just some notes, some stuff to look at is flat versus face, multi-tenant versus commercial center, some notes just on all of that. And then density, future thing in density, and should it be increased and to what? That's what I have.
Anybody have anything else
Unless I missed something.
they want to talk about?
Something that I brought up some time ago, and I don't think has ever been addressed, is the Piggly Wiggly sign.
I actually did go up there, so Nate told me one time, you're saying it was illuminated?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Oh, for God's sakes.
so Nate.
it
told me-
is.
Again?
It is. At
So
least
maybe-
I haven't looked at it. It's been a month since I looked at it at night, so I could be
Yeah,
correct.
so Nate had told me one time it was illuminated, and so I had went out there, I think it was the next day, I got a note in the file, and it wasn't illuminated when I went out there. And then whenever I went out there after there, I never saw it illuminated, but
I
Because
can,
I fought with them when, shortly after they first put the addition on and we allowed that. And Tom Nesbitt finally showed up to a meeting and said, well, nobody told me it couldn't be illuminated.
and that's, we explicitly told the builder at the meeting, you put that sign up that you cannot.
I can't
illuminate.
help about your communication or whatever. And if you're the owner and you don't know what's going on and what's being approved, that's pretty bad.
What sign is it?
The pig face.
Not the pig face, it's actually the lettering that says the Piggly Wiggly.
on the building itself,
Yes. I know that was, I think it was.
Oh, so the
February.
pig face is still unlit.
I don't believe that's lit, but the actual
Okay.
light, the writing on it.
Okay.
Nate, have you noticed like when they turn it on, like is it
8:30 at night and they're only open till 9 or
Yeah, I mean,
something?
like, in the winter, it was much more noticeable. I mean, I'll go by there tonight and I'll look at it after dark. But I'm just looking to see if I can.
So I think they're open until like 9 o'clock right now, so are they not ever allowed to have it illuminated?
No,
No,
Oh, okay.
no illuminated signs?
there's no internal illumination in the village.
Okay.
Their open sign is too.
That's a neon sign, right?
you know,
That's allowed,
As long as it doesn't flash.
as long as it doesn't flash.
I'm not able to find that.
Okay. All right, we'll let the two of you take care of that.
Yeah, I know I had been over there one time, wasn't on, but maybe I don't drive by, I have the.
At 7:59, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Motion by Berto,
Second.
second by Chantal. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
This one, Denise, we had wanted them to go with them. But I did. And then they did do a raised space, you can see
A lot of signs.
this part
Years ago.
lasted down a half inch. Is this the NDF?
It wasn't this.
HDU or something.
So they did